emotion regulation skills are all about removing the rigidity that we have to a particular story being 100% accurate all of the time. And this is where the integration of schema therapy really becomes super important, because we're practicing mode management in distress tolerance. We're trying to manage the modes of behavior that are reacting to the distress because we're in that state of fight or flight. With emotion regulation, we're now actually going to start working with the stories, the schema, the things that are going on underneath the surface, the way that internal narrative is driving the emotional response that then activates the behavioral response, because of the rigid belief that we have to behave a certain way when this story is active in our system. Does that make sense?
It does. And I just want to clarify for people that are listening, and for myself as well. There's a term I hear, frustration tolerance. Would it be the same when we're talking? Yes, in a sense.
Yeah, because frustration is basically, so in dialectical behavior therapy, it's an emotion-focused therapy, right? It's like it's trying to understand that our emotions, when our emotions are active in our system and we go outside of that window of tolerance, there are rigid behavioral responses that happen in our system, and frustration falls under there are 10 emotions in DBT, and then each of those emotions has a continuum of feelings and other things that fall underneath it. Frustration falls on the continuum of anger. So if you're in a space of frustration, you're falling under the emotional continuum of anger. And if that frustration is building, it's going to take you into a space of distress. So when you go into distress, you're now in fight, flight, freeze, submit, distract, and those automatic behaviors are going to kick in. The thing that's creating the frustration is the story that's in your system. Now, a lot of people, one of the statements I hear quite a bit is, if you're talking about anxiety or whatever emotion you're talking about, but let's just use anxiety, right? They'll say, I really struggle with anxiety, and life just gives me anxiety. It's not life that gives you anxiety. It's your story about life that gives you anxiety. So when we get into emotion regulation, we're starting to work with the story that's creating the anxiety, the story that's creating the frustration, the story that's creating the fear, the disgust, the sadness, the whatever it is that's in our system that's sending us into that state of fight or flight. It revolves around the story that we're telling ourselves about those particular situations. And we are constantly, as human beings, if you look at this from a schema therapy perspective, we are constantly existing in the realms of one story or another, always. That story might be effective and adaptive. It might be, I feel emotional fulfillment. I feel like I socially belong, so I fit in. I've got a pretty healthy sense of self, so I'm adapting to situations in a very effective way to live the life I want to live. And at the same time, there are times in our life where we slip into those maladaptive and ineffective schemas that revolve around things like social isolation, so I don't fit in, emotional deprivation, you're not going to give me the love that I need, abandonment, mistrust of self or others, like all these different stories that when they kick in, take us into this space of emotional distress. And then there is a rigid behavioral response that kicks in our system, trying to cope with that emotional distress. So in distress tolerance, we're trying to manage those behavioral responses so that we can teach our system how to handle that distress in a healthy way. In emotion regulation, now we're going to go to work on the stories that are underneath the surface. So it is really important that we understand that, for me, DBT is a process, especially when we integrate it with schema therapy. It's also a lifestyle. What we don't want to do is just know DBT and then put the book back on the shelf. Like the first time I did DBT many years ago, I just did DBT. I learned what the skills were. I understood them. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Put the book back on the shelf and forgot all about it. So, when we're understanding working from a DBT perspective, for me, dialectical behavior therapy is a lifestyle.
The clip you just watched was taken from the upcoming podcast, A Conversation for Liberation. If you like the content of this clip, please subscribe to the channel, smash that like button and turn on the notifications so you can stay up to date with when each full episode gets released. As always, if you want to know more about what we do at the Liberation Place, come join the live online meetings that I facilitate each week for free on Zoom. I'll leave a link to the page containing more information about these groups in the description below. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Take care, be safe and be well.